What are actual red flags in relationships? I really wanted to know, not for the reason you might think. I wanted to know for myself because I often think we do tend to look at others' red flags, others' contribution to problems before we look at our own. And a couple of years ago, I watched a video of the Gottman Institute, and they are fourth generation relationship psychologists, and they made a list of things that are considered red flags in relationships. And these are four things that we are going to look at today. So the first one is defensiveness. We'll go through them one by one. Okay, so the first one is defensiveness. Then we look at stonewalling. Then we look at criticism. And then we look at contempt. And it's very important for you when you listen to this video, first look at yourself. We cannot expect other people to change themselves for us if we're not willing to change ourselves first. Another thing that's very important is to realize that we all do these things. So be realistic that there's no way that a person is alive that you don't have one of these attributes. The problem is to the scale to which you have the attribute and whether you are willing to change these attributes and to control them, meaning you don't let them run rampant and just ruin all your relationships. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is defensiveness. Defensiveness means that you are unable to hear that you have done something wrong. Whether you intended to do something wrong or not, you don't want to hear it. And so what you do is you get defensive. You blame shift. When you are defensive, you often find other people, other things to blame for your behavior, or to blame, or to give yourself perhaps permission to act the way that you are acting, and you shouldn't. Okay, so, and another thing is when you get defensive, you will tell other people, well, you are overreacting. It's not as bad as you say it is. You are making this worse than it actually is. And all of these things are considered part of defensiveness. The next thing we'll be looking at is stonewalling. A lot of Afrikaans people don't know what stonewalling is. Stonewalling is when you have what we call in Afrikaans stil stype. Okay, maybe that will explain it a bit better to you. But what that basically means is you go silent when someone does something or says something or reacts in a way that you don't like. You go quiet. And you don't go quiet because you need time to process. You go quiet. Subconsciously, you might not be aware of it, but you go quiet because you want to punish the other person. And so we use communication as a manipulation tool to get what we want from the other person. If we want them to give us an apology, we just stay quiet until they eventually get fed up with the silence and they'll apologize just to get the peace back. A lot of people don't realize that they're doing this, and it actually really creates a negative and tangible atmosphere around you where people can feel something is off. And people will get desperate to get out of that atmosphere, and they'll apologize or they'll say, okay, I was the problem, just so that you don't actually continue with your stonewalling ways. And so this is something really bad to live with. So if you realize you're doing this, work very hard on this. The other thing that you do is you use contact to teach people a lesson. So if there's nothing wrong with having boundaries, right? But if you're the only one who's setting boundaries, and on top of that, don't want to get boundaries from other people, and then use contact to teach them a lesson, you are the problem. If you are a believer, this is not a biblical way to do things at all. So what you do is you stay quiet or you cut off communication in order for your message to be received, because you know that otherwise people will not take this boundary. And usually we do this when we know our boundaries are ridiculous. And so we cannot use contact and communication as a tool for punishment or as a tool to get what we want. We need to be able to sit at a table and to hear what our contribution was to the problem. My mom always said, whether you are 99% guilty or 1% guilty, you are guilty, and you need to take responsibility for your part of the guilt. The next thing we're looking at is criticism, and women are often blamed and said this is criticizing, and it's often not. So let's understand what criticism really is. Criticism is when you deliver a critique on someone else, and it's not in love, and it's not for the benefit of the entire relationship. It's just to your own benefit, regardless of what it will do to the other person or the effect that it will have with the other person. So it's very important that criticisms can be healthy, but we shouldn't be critical on everything, and it should be to the benefit of the many and not just the one. And it should be delivered in love and compassion, not out of your anger or your emotions or your wounds. Then another thing about criticism is that we often think that it is this thing, but it is not. Okay, so when someone is breaking you down so that you can be perceived as innocent. So let me maybe explain this a bit better. So what happens, let's say that I'm the guilty party. Now someone comes to me and tell me that I'm the guilty party. And then what I do is I immediately flip it on its head and I say, well, you did this, this, and this. So do you see, I receive criticism, and part of the criticism behavior that I then display is to get defensive and immediately point the finger back at you and say things like, well, I can act like this because you did this, this, and this. Or I can do this. So they first validate their wrong actions with defensiveness, and then they turn the criticism back onto you. And that is actual criticism. And it's a difficult thing to notice in yourself. Another thing that is criticism is that your actions are covered up or to look less like a problem. So you use your criticism to make yourself innocent. Maybe you struggle with guilt and you just cannot carry any more guilt. Maybe you are the critical voice inside of your own head that criticizes yourself the whole time. And so when other people deliver criticisms to you, you try what you can to make yourself as innocent as possible. And because you can't deal with any more criticisms on yourself, or perhaps you just weren't taught. Your parents never criticized you. You were never taught to sit down and hear where you are responsible. And so you then do things like you're overreacting, and it's not that bad. And we often see this happening, and this is actually you being critical on the other person who's delivering a critique out of love, and then you use criticism wrong. So this is something that you should really work on. And then the last thing we're looking at is contempt. And contempt is a very interesting one. We don't often realize that we have contempt, and this really comes through in body language, and I often see this in body language in people. One of the first signs of contempt is a mouth that's pulled downward. You know, I don't naturally have that, but you know, when you see people's mouths do that, and I'm not talking when their faces are resting, when they talk to you and they're like, then you know that can be contempt. It doesn't mean everyone who does that is displaying contempt, but that's a way. And another way that people display contempt is eye rolling. So let's say you say to me that, Natanya, I'm really upset with you. You did this, this, and this, and it really hurt my feelings. And I go, oh, here we go again. That's what my body language is saying. Oh, not this again. I cannot hear your issues anymore. So eye rolling is a big sign of contempt. And why I said contempt is so interesting, it's because mentally you believe that you have superiority. Mentally you believe that your opinion, your views, your way of doing things are superior to the person in front of you, because you believe you are more right, or you have a bigger right to demand what you want and get what you want because of this, this, and this. And these are all signs of contempt. Another sign of contempt is that you actually always believe when conflict arises that the other person is crazy and they need to fix themselves. It's not often that people are crazy and they're the sole reason for a problem and they need to go fix themselves. Often it's a two-way street, and like I said, whether it's 1% or 99%, you'll have guilt and you'll have to take responsibility for your part in the guilt. And so the you have to fix yourself mentality, where people aren't able to hear where they are wrong, process it and say, wow, I'm so sorry. I hear that I did this, this, and this to you, and that it made you feel like this, and I'm so sorry. That was not my intention. what they will do is they will get upset, and the first thing they will think is, I cannot go on like this. This person needs to fix themselves. They need to pull themselves together because I'm not going to deal with this nonsense. That is contempt. That is you making the other person 100% the problem, and it just doesn't work like that. And you quite often do that without compassion because you have this superiority thing in your head going on. And then the last thing that I think is quite important about contempt is that it's in psychology research they've done with people who are divorced, is that contempt is the most common contributor or denominator in divorce. That is the one thing that shows up consistently. Everyone who's been divorced has experienced contempt of one sort, where the one person believed they were always right and unwilling to work on themselves, unwilling to fix themselves, unwilling to hear where they are wrong because they are right and you are wrong. And I just think that's very interesting. And then my suggestion to you is to heal your red flags first before you expect other people to heal theirs. And so we can't take the, what is that saying? Take the piece of wood out of someone else's eye before we've taken the splinter out of our own. And so make sure that you are willing to work on yourself. And as you work on yourself, you will learn how these behaviors work. You will learn what they actually look like. And if you are a single person, or maybe even just a person who's working in the workplace, you'll be able to see where is the boundary of okay and not okay, because you've done the work yourself. And you'll be able to set up boundaries to say, this type of criticism I'll accept, but this type of criticism is not healthy and I'm going to say something. This type of defensiveness is someone stating their intentions, but this type of defensiveness is putting the blame back on me. It's not okay. I'm going to say something. This type of silence is someone who's taking space for themselves, but they come back to the table and they apologize and they talk and they really work hard on repair. And this type of silence is to punish me. This type of silence is someone who doesn't want to come to the table. And so you will learn, where these boundaries lie, and you'll be able to see the red flags in yourself always first and then in others. I hope this helped you as much as it helped me. Please feel free to leave a comment. If you like this video, click the like button. Remember to subscribe to our channel and don't forget to ring the bell.